Hello students, in this video we will discuss chapter 1, The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde, Grade 8, Discovering. The story of the Happy Prince dwells upon the themes like social injustice, redemptive power of love, and the loss of innocence. In this story we come across a statue who was once upon a time a real prince. When the prince was alive, he was a happy person. He lived in the palace and did not know about human suffering. His life was full of joys. Upon his death, his statue was built at the top of the tall column in the city. The statue was covered all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes he had 2 bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. The statue of the happy prince looked beautiful, and everyone in the city loved to see their prince. Since he was placed high above the city on a tall column, the happy prince was able to witness all the sorrows and the sufferings which common people faced in their daily life. But the prince remained ignorant of them during his lifetime. This made the prince, once happy, very sad. His eyes got watered, and large drops of water began to run down his golden cheeks. A little swallow, who had alighted between the feet of the happy prince to spend night there, became curious to know where did the drops of water fall from. He looked up and saw the eyes of the happy prince full of tears. The bird took pity on the prince and became ready to assist him in his desire to ease the sufferings of the common people. He became the messenger of the prince and agreed to remove the fine gold and jewels from his statue to distribute them among the poor and the needy. He started with plucking the ruby from the prince's sword and giving it to the seamstress, who had no money to feed her ailing child. Then he plucked a sapphire from one of the eyes of the statue and gave it to the playwright, who was too poor to make the fine fire in the winter to continue his writing. He was also very hungry and feeling weak. One day, the happy prince saw a match girl who was being beaten by her father for letting her matches fall in the gutter. The prince's heart filled with the pity for the girl. He immediately commanded the swallow to pluck out his other eye and help the girl. But the swallow was not ready to do so because this would make the prince completely blind. On being insisted, he plucked out of the prince's other eye, swooped past the match girl, and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. The little bird decided not to leave the company of the happy prince, who had gone blind now. Although the prince was not able to see the sorrows of suffering people, he knew it was there, so he instructed the bird to take off the fine gold he was covered with and give it to the poor. The bird followed his words and picked off leaves after leaf of the gold till the happy prince looked dull and grey. In fact, it was time for the bird to die now, because it died from the exposure and exhaustion. Just at that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue, as if something had broken. It was, in fact, the leaden heart that had snapped right in two at the loss of the sweet and kind swallow. The statue was no more beautiful and useful. It stood deserted, so the town councillor and the mayor pulled it down, and they melted the statue in the furnace. But the broken heart did not melt, so they threw it on the dust heap where the dead swallow was lying. When God asked one of his angels to bring two most precious things in the city. The angel brought to him the laden hart and the dead bird. God welcomed the two in his garden of paradise and deemed